Have you ever caught someone looking at you from across the room, only to quickly look away? Or received a compliment that felt impossible to believe? The gap between how we see ourselves and how others perceive us is often vast, a psychological chasm that Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist, would recognize as deeply significant. We all carry a self-image formed through years of internal dialogue, childhood experiences, and cultural messaging. Yet this image is rarely accurate. Jung understood that our conscious mind, the part of us that thinks, reasons, and judges, is just the tip of a much larger iceberg. Beneath the surface lies the unconscious, containing aspects of ourselves we fail to recognize or acknowledge. The first silent sign you're more attractive than you think stems from this psychological blind spot. People consistently seek your opinion or approval. When others regularly turn to you for validation or perspective, it's not just about your knowledge, it's about your psychological presence. Jung would say they're responding to something in your aura or personality that resonates with them. On an unconscious level, notice how certain individuals in your life consistently share their achievements with you first, or ask, "What do you think?" before making decisions. This magnetic pull you exert isn't accidental. It's a reflection of an innate charisma that others perceive, but you might dismiss or rationalize away. The second sign appears in how people remember specific details about you or your conversations. Jung believed meaningful connections form through what he called synchronicity, seemingly coincidental events that actually reveal deeper patterns of connection. When someone recalls that story you told months ago, or remembers your coffee preference without prompting, they're demonstrating that you've made an impression powerful enough to occupy space in their mental landscape. This remembering is significant. In our distracted world, attention has become our scarcest resource. When people invest that resource in you, in your words, your preferences, your stories, they're signaling that something about you commands their focus. You've penetrated beyond the surface of casual interaction. The third sign involves body language shifts in your presence. Jung recognized that our bodies often express what our conscious minds haven't yet acknowledged. Watch for subtle changes. When you enter a room, people sitting up straighter, adjusting their clothing or orientating themselves toward you. These micro-expressions aren't calculated, they're instinctive responses to someone who registers as attractive on multiple levels, physically, intellectually, or energetically. What's particularly telling about these nonverbal cues is their authenticity. We can control our words, but our bodies often betray our true feelings. When someone's pupils dilate while speaking with you, or their gestures become more animated, they're responding to something compelling about your presence that transcends conventional attractiveness. The fourth sign lies in how people create opportunities to be near you. Jung understood that humans are naturally drawn toward what inspires or completes them. When colleagues consistently choose the seat next to yours, or friends find reasons to include you in plans, they're orbiting around your psychological gravity. This isn't mere coincidence, it's unconscious recognition of something valuable in your presence. Pay attention to those who seem to appear in doorways when you're passing by, who join the same committees, or who somehow find themselves in your vicinity with surprising frequency. These coincidences often reveal an unspoken attraction that the person themselves might not fully recognize. The fifth sign appears in how others defend or support you in your absence. Jung believed that how people speak about us when we're not present reveals something truthful about our relationship. When you discover that someone has stood up for you, shared your accomplishments with others, or defended your perspective without your knowledge, you're witnessing evidence of your impact on them. This kind of advocacy stems from authentic appreciation, something that goes deeper than surface-level attraction. It suggests you've touched something essential in the other person, activating what Jung would call positive archetypal energies. You've become, in their unconscious, a figure worthy of loyalty and respect. These 5 signs are just the beginning of understanding your unrecognized attractiveness. They point toward a fundamental truth that Jung emphasized throughout his work. We are always more than we think we are. Our self-perception is limited by our consciousness, while our full being, including our attractive qualities, extends far beyond what we can see in our own mirror. What if the most magnetic aspects of your personality are precisely those you cannot see? Carl Jung proposed that our blind spots, the aspects of ourselves invisible to our conscious mind, often contain our greatest treasures. This paradox lies at the heart of attraction. Sometimes what draws others to us most powerfully remains hidden from our own awareness. The sixth sign you're more attractive than you think is that people seem unusually comfortable revealing vulnerability around you. Jung believed that true connection happens when we create what he called a temenos, a sacred, protected psychological space where authentic exchange can occur. When others instinctively share their fears, dreams, or insecurities with you, they're responding to something in your presence that signals safety and acceptance. This capacity to inspire openness isn't something you can fake. It emerges from what Jung called the wounded healer archetype, the notion that our own reconciled wounds become the very source of our healing influence on others. Have you noticed acquaintances telling you things they don't usually share with anyone? Or strangers opening up about personal matters shortly after meeting you? This isn't random. They're responding to an unconscious signal you're transmitting, one that says it's safe to be authentic here. What makes this quality so powerful is that it often stems from your own integrated shadow material, the parts of yourself you've acknowledged and made peace with rather than projecting onto others. The more you've embraced your own imperfections, the more others sense they needn't perform or pretend around you. This creates a magnetic authenticity that conventional attraction advice rarely addresses. The seventh sign appears in how people seek your physical presence during moments of celebration or crisis. Jung understood that humans instinctively orient themselves toward sources of psychological nourishment. When others consistently want you in the room during significant moments, whether joyful or difficult, they're responding to what Jung might call your mana personality, a term he borrowed from Polynesian culture to describe individuals who emanate a special kind of spiritual energy or presence. Notice who people call first with good news or bad news. Observe whose company is requested during major life transitions or decisions. If you frequently find yourself in this role, you're witnessing evidence of your attractiveness operating at a level beyond the physical, what Jung would consider the most meaningful form of appeal. You've become, in their unconscious mapping of the world, a source of strength or witnessing that they value deeply. This gravitational pull you exert during pivotal moments reveals something about your presence that transcends conventional attractiveness. You may possess what Jung called anamkara energy, a Celtic concept meaning soul friend. People intuitively recognize that you contribute something essential to their experience, perhaps grounding, perspective, or simply the quality of your attention that enhances their capacity to fully inhabit important life moments. These seven signs collectively point towards something profound about attraction that modern discourse often overlooks. True appeal emerges from psychological integration rather than perfection. Jung believed that wholeness, not flawlessness, constitutes our deepest human yearning. Your attractiveness may stem precisely from how you've reconciled contradictory aspects of yourself, creating what Jung called the conjunctio oppositorum, or union of opposites. Consider how your contradictions might actually enhance your appeal. Perhaps your strength becomes more compelling because you've acknowledged your vulnerability. Maybe your confidence attracts others because it coexists with genuine humility. Your intelligence might draw people because it's paired with emotional awareness. Jung would suggest that these tensions, when held consciously rather than split off, create a psychological completeness that others instinctively recognize and desire. This integrated quality manifests in how you navigate social dynamics. You likely don't perform the same personality in every context, but instead bring different facets of yourself forward as appropriate. Jung would call this psychological flexibility, the capacity to access various aspects of your personality while maintaining a coherent sense of self. This adaptability, far from being inauthentic, actually reflects a more complete embodiment of your whole personality. What's particularly meaningful about this kind of attractiveness is that it deepens rather than diminishes with age. Unlike physical beauty alone, psychological wholeness tends to increase through conscious living. The very experiences that challenge your self-image, rejection, failure, loss, become, when metabolized properly, the soil from which your most attractive qualities grow. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey toward becoming more fully yourself. The journey toward recognizing your own attractiveness parallels the broader individuation process. It requires psychological courage, the willingness to question your assumptions about yourself and remain open to evidence that contradicts your self-perception. Jung would emphasize that this work isn't merely about boosting self-esteem, but about developing a more accurate relationship with reality including the reality of how you impact others. Jung believed we all carry a persona, a social mask that mediates between our authentic self and societal expectations. Your persona may include self-deprecation or modesty that blinds you to your attractive qualities. While humility has value, Jung would distinguish between true humility, an accurate assessment of one's strengths and limitations, and false humility, an unconscious strategy to protect yourself from the vulnerability of being fully seen. The shadow side of not recognizing your attractiveness is that you may unconsciously sabotage connections or opportunities that would otherwise enrich your life. You might dismiss genuine interest as just being friendly or attribute others' attraction to ulterior motives rather than authentic appreciation. This misperception doesn't just affect your self-concept, it impacts your relationships and choices in tangible ways. Jung would suggest that integrating awareness of your attractive qualities requires confronting the psychological resistance that emerges when you consider your power. Many people unconsciously fear their own light as much as their darkness. There's vulnerability in acknowledging your impact on others. It carries responsibility and challenges core beliefs about your place in the social world. Yet this integration is essential for authentic relationships and self-actualization. As you move through the world, consider how acknowledging your attractiveness might shift not just how you see yourself, but how you engage with others. Perhaps you'll listen more attentively when receiving compliments rather than deflecting them. Maybe you'll recognize when someone's interest reflects genuine attraction rather than dismissing the possibility. These small shifts in perception can gradually transform your experience of connection. Beyond the individual signs of unrecognized attractiveness lies a deeper dimension that Jung spent his life exploring: the archetypal realm. These universal patterns of meaning, residing in what Jung called the collective unconscious, profoundly influence attraction in ways that transcend cultural conditioning or personal history. Understanding your attractiveness through this archetypal lens offers not just validation, but a pathway toward greater psychological wholeness. Jung believed that we are drawn to people who embody or activate specific archetypes within us. When others find you attractive, they may be responding to archetypal energies you carry, perhaps unconsciously, that resonate with something essential in their own psyche. This archetypal dimension explains why attraction often feels fated, meaningful, or larger than the individuals involved. Consider which archetypal energies you might embody that draw others toward you. Do you carry aspects of the wise one, whose perspective offers clarity amid confusion? The healer, whose presence facilitates wholeness? The creator, whose generative energy inspires others? The warrior, whose boundaries and courage provide a sense of safety? Understanding your archetypal signature can illuminate patterns in how others respond to you. What makes archetypal attraction so powerful is that it operates beneath conscious awareness. Someone might rationalize their attraction to you, citing your humor, intelligence, or physical features, without realizing they're responding to something more primal. Perhaps you embody qualities associated with the mother archetype, nurturing, abundance, protection, or the father archetype, guidance, structure, authority. These primordial images activate powerful responses that often feel mysterious or inexplicable. The archetypal dimension also explains why your attractiveness may manifest differently across relationships. Different people will be drawn to different aspects of your archetypal constellation, the unique combination of universal patterns expressed through your individual personality. One person might be magnetized by your trickster energy, playfulness, rule-breaking, challenging conventions, while another responds powerfully to your lover qualities, intimacy, aesthetic appreciation, passionate engagement. This variety in response doesn't indicate inconsistency in your attractiveness, but rather reveals the multidimensional nature of your being. Jung emphasized that psychological wholeness involves integrating many archetypal energies rather than identifying exclusively with one. Your attractiveness is similarly multifaceted, activating different responses depending on who encounters you and which aspects of themselves are seeking expression or completion. The concept of projection, central to Jungian psychology, offers another framework for understanding unrecognized attractiveness. Jung observed that we project unconscious qualities onto others, particularly positive qualities we haven't yet claimed in ourselves. When someone sees you as exceptionally attractive, they may be projecting their own unintegrated potential onto This doesn't diminish the reality of your appealing qualities. It simply adds another dimension to the attraction dynamic. What's particularly meaningful about this perspective is that it places attraction within a larger context of mutual psychological development. Jung called this process the psychology of the transference, a phenomenon where unconscious material is projected onto another person, creating powerful emotional responses that can either impede or facilitate growth depending on how consciously they're handled. When others are drawn to you, something in their unconscious is seeking expression, recognition, or integration. This understanding transforms how we might interpret others' attraction. Rather than seeing it merely as validation of our worth or dismissing it as their misperception, we can appreciate it as part of an intricate psychological exchange with potential for mutual growth. Jung might suggest that when someone is strongly attracted to you, both of you are being offered an opportunity for greater consciousness, a chance to recognize projections and reclaim disowned aspects of yourselves. The path toward fully acknowledging your attractiveness involves what Jung called active imagination, a process of engaging consciously with unconscious material. Consider dialoguing internally with the part of yourself that dismisses or minimizes your attractive qualities. What fears or beliefs sustain this resistance? Perhaps there's concern about becoming narcissistic, or fear of others' envy, or worry that acknowledging your appeal might create obligation or unwanted attention. Jung would emphasize that integrating awareness of your attractiveness doesn't mean inflating your ego or developing conceit. True integration involves holding the tension between humility and self-recognition, acknowledging your genuine appeal without identifying your essential worth with external validation. This balanced perspective allows you to appreciate others' positive responses without becoming dependent on them for your sense of value. The individuation journey involves recognizing that you are both more and less than others' perceptions of you. You contain attractive qualities they accurately perceive, yet you also encompass dimensions they cannot see. Similarly, you are both more and less than your own self-concept, possessing strengths you haven't acknowledged while also facing limitations you must embrace with compassion. True psychological maturity emerges from holding these paradoxes with grace. Jung observed that midlife often brings a crucial shift in how we understand ourselves, including our attractive qualities. The persona that served us in early adulthood, perhaps emphasizing achievement, competence, or conventional attractiveness, may no longer align with our deeper needs. What makes you truly attractive in the second half of life likely differs from what drew others to you in your youth, reflecting a natural evolution toward greater authenticity and depth. This developmental perspective reveals something profound about lasting attractiveness. It evolves as you individuate. The qualities that magnetize others to you at 50 may bear little resemblance to what drew them at 20. Jung would suggest this represents not deterioration, but maturation, an alignment with more essential aspects of yourself that transcend cultural ideals or transient physical attributes. The second half of life offers an opportunity to discover forms of attractiveness that emerge from psychological integration rather than persona maintenance. As you reconcile opposites within yourself, strength and vulnerability, certainty and openness, joy and sorrow, you develop what Jung called charisma, a compelling authenticity that draws others not despite your complexities, but because of them. This mature attractiveness carries a depth that superficial appeal cannot match. Research in positive psychology supports this Jungian perspective. Studies consistently show that qualities like presence, emotional intelligence, and authenticity significantly influence perceptions of attractiveness. One study found that individuals who displayed genuine interest in others were rated as more physically attractive after 10 minutes of conversation than they were based on photographs alone. What Jung understood intuitively, that inner qualities manifest as outer magnetism, science now confirms empirically. This research also reveals something Jung emphasized: our perception powerfully shapes our reality. When you believe yourself unattractive, you may unconsciously adopt behaviors that diminish your appeal, avoiding eye contact, dismissing compliments, physically contracting your presence. Conversely, recognizing your attractive qualities can create a virtuous cycle of authentic confidence, openness, and connection that enhances those very qualities. The neurological basis for this phenomenon involves mirror neurons, brain cells, that activate both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. When you genuinely recognize and appreciate your own value, your nervous system communicates this self-regard non-verbally. Others literally catch your self-perception through microscopic facial expressions, vocal tonality, and body language that their mirror neurons process below conscious awareness. Jung would appreciate this scientific validation of his insights, while emphasizing that attractiveness ultimately transcends materialist explanations. The most compelling forms of appeal connect to what he called the transcendent function, the psyche's capacity to create meaningful synthesis from apparent opposites. Your most magnetic qualities likely emerge from how you've integrated contradictory aspects of yourself into a coherent whole. Consider how your wounds and challenges, when consciously engaged, might contribute to your attractiveness. Jung believed that confronting our suffering potentially leads to what he called wounded wholeness, an authentic integration that others instinctively trust and respect. The Japanese aesthetic tradition of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, offers a beautiful metaphor for this principle. Your cracks don't diminish your appeal. Properly integrated, they become your most distinctive and valuable features. This perspective invites a fundamental reframe. What if the aspects of yourself you've tried to hide or fix are precisely what make you most compelling to others? What if your sensitivity, your unusual thinking patterns, your emotional intensity, or your unconventional background provide exactly the qualities that draw people toward you? Jung would suggest that our distinctive shadows, when brought into consciousness, often contain our greatest gifts. The therapeutic implications of this reframe are profound. Rather than striving to eliminate your perceived flaws or conform to external standards of attractiveness, you might instead focus on becoming more fully yourself, integrating disowned aspects of your personality and developing greater psychological coherence. This path leads not just to greater attractiveness, but to deeper fulfillment and more authentic connections. Jung would emphasize that this work isn't merely personal, it has collective significance. As you integrate awareness of your attractive qualities and share your authentic gifts, you contribute to what he called the collective individuation of society. Your willingness to recognize your value and live from that recognition creates ripple effects, giving others permission to acknowledge their own unique appeal and contributions. The spiritual dimension of attraction was central to Jung's understanding. He viewed the magnetic pull between people as potentially numinous, containing elements of the sacred or divine. When others are powerfully drawn to you, something beyond ego-based desire may be operating, perhaps what Jung would call soul recognition, a resonance at the level of essential being rather than persona or physical appearance. This spiritual perspective doesn't negate the psychological dimensions we've explored, but rather contextualizes them within a larger framework of meaning. Your attractiveness may serve purposes beyond personal validation or reproductive success, perhaps facilitating soul connections that catalyze mutual growth, creative collaboration, or collective healing. Jung believed that meaningful human encounters often carried this teleological aspect, serving developmental purposes that transcend individual preferences. As we conclude our exploration of unrecognized attractiveness, consider how holding a more accurate perception of your appeal might alter not just your self-concept but your life choices. How might you engage differently in relationships if you trusted that others' interest reflects genuine appreciation rather than manipulation or misperception? What creative or professional paths might you pursue if you acknowledged the unique value your presence brings to situations? Jung would encourage approaching these questions with both courage and humility. Courage to consider that you may indeed possess qualities others find deeply attractive, and humility to recognize that these qualities aren't personal achievements, but expressions of archetypal energies flowing through your unique vessel. This balanced perspective allows for genuine self-appreciation without inflation. The individuation journey invites ongoing dialogue between your self-perception and others' responses to you. Neither represents the complete truth. Reality emerges from the dynamic interaction between them. By remaining open to evidence that challenges your self-image, particularly evidence suggesting your attractiveness exceeds your estimation, you create space for a more accurate and empowering self-concept to emerge. This openness requires vulnerability, the willingness to consider that your fundamental assumptions about yourself might be incomplete. Jung believed that authentic growth always involves such vulnerability, as we surrender cherished but limiting beliefs about who we are. The potential reward for this courage is substantial, not just enhanced attractiveness, but greater wholeness, more authentic relationships, and alignment with your unique purpose. As you move forward, consider documenting instances that suggest others find you more attractive than you've recognized. What patterns emerge? Which archetypal energies seem most active in how others respond to you? This conscious attention creates a bridge between unconscious material and your awareness, precisely the bridge that Jung saw as essential to psychological development and integration. Remember that acknowledging your attractiveness isn't about cultivating narcissism, but about perceiving reality more accurately. Self-deprecation isn't humility. It's a distortion that limits your capacity for authentic connection and contribution. True humility involves recognizing both your gifts and limitations with equal clarity, embracing the complex, beautiful truth of who you are and how you impact others.